All right, what is up, though, Lions fans? We are back once again. And it's the Motor City Cats back at it. I came to give you stats, not static. Whatever you do, make sure you keep your Lions news pragmatic. We are here to talk about all things Lions. We are talking about that Big Z energy. Big Z, Za'Darius Smith. He is set to make his debut against the lowly Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, it wasn't so long ago. It wasn't so long ago that people said that about the Detroit Lions, but no more. Your Detroit Lions are being spoken about playing in late January, mid-December, mid-February. You know what that means. After the Pro Bowl type stuff. Or did they move the Pro Bowl? I don't know. When's the last time anybody watched the Pro Bowl? Does anybody watch that anymore? I don't. I don't remember watching one since it left Hawaii. Just be quite honest with you. I've caught highlights, obviously. I haven't watched any of the skills challenges, none of that stuff. Obviously, I guess that's fun stuff, right? I'm just not interested in the Pro Bowl or any of its festivities. Like, I'm no longer interested in the NBA All-Star game and the slam dunk contest. We've seen all the dunks. Unless you're going to get street dunkers to come out and go against the NBA dunkers, yeah, that's something I would want to see. But other than that, nothing. But anyway, Big Z energy, Za'Darius Smith, big energy guy, as he said himself. We're going to get into that. But we're first going to get into some Lions news and rumors. We're going to talk about some NFC North news, because the news coming out of the NFC North, especially Chicago, is quite delicious. It's quite delicious. Sometimes you just got to tune into a Chicago Bears podcast and just drink the tears of the Chicago Bears fans. Sometimes you have to do that for enjoyment, and I do it regularly. Regularly is the word I was looking for. I don't know why I didn't say it, but I do that regularly. Now, in case you're wondering, why am I wearing the victory buffs on a Wednesday? We didn't play on Monday night. Why am I wearing the victory buffs on a Wednesday? Well, I'll tell you, quite frankly, I now wear the victory buffs all the time because all we do is win, 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 no matter what. Every time we walk up in the building, they put on their victory buffs and they stay there, and they stay there. Okay, that's all I got to say about that. But anyway, let's go ahead and get back into it. The Lions news and rumors. We got a lot of stuff going on, man. We have a lot of stuff going on around the Detroit Lions, and they're really just trying to take stuff from the Detroit Lions. It's the media machine, the national media machine. They just have to. They can't let us have nice things. The first headline that I have: AFC team predicted to poach front office exec from Lions and hire Ben Johnson. So they want to take from our structure and our coaching staff. What's next? I'm going to try to take our quarterback too. So let's see what they're saying about this AFC team, because there's a lot of bad AFC teams. A lot of bad AFC teams. And we're going to face one soon here. And we'll get into the preview of all that on Friday. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do over here on Motor City Cats is, when we have a game on Sunday, I'll preview it on Friday. If we have a game on Thursday, like we have back-to-back games on Thursday, we've got the Bears on Thanksgiving, and then the Thursday night game on Amazon Prime. After that week, we have the Packers coming to Ford Field. So what I'll do for those situations is I'll preview those on Wednesday. Because why not preview the game the day before it happens? And then live stream the game as it's happening. And then react to the game the day after it happens. That's what I'll be doing. All right, so let's see what this AFC team. It says it is an article from Sideline Report. Brad Berriman does an excellent job. Please read him if you don't read him already. It says it's not big news based on what he's done the last 2 hiring cycles, but ESPN's Adam Schefter recently reaffirmed how selective Detroit Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson will be when it comes to taking a head coaching job. If he takes a head coaching job, obviously, says he will be sought after. Schefter added blah, 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 blah. I'm sure you've seen this on Get Up already. I think it happened like last week. But here's the team that we're looking at. So the idea of a team poaching a new general manager from the Lions front office and that hire helping them hire Johnson as their next head coach isn't completely out of left field. NFL analyst Chad Forbes has offered a prediction for that to happen. Chad Forbes tweets, in 4 months, crystal ball. Bears hire Cliff Kingsbury. Firing Matt Eberflus. Hiring Cliff Kingsbury. Now, here's the thing. Before I get too far off track, because I said we're going to talk some Bears, we're going to talk some NFC North. My guy. Why would and this would be so Bearsian. This would be such a Bearsian thing to do. But why would you hire a Cliff Kingsbury who failed to hold accountable a Kyler Murray who win a video game, Call of Duty, shout out. Okay. And things have changed. How things have changed. A video game in Call of Duty. When that came out, Kyler Murray's play tanked. It went in the tank. Jonathan Gannon comes in, and since Call of Duty came out, they are 3-0. Since Call of Duty came out, Kyler Murray put away the sticks, or not that he put the sticks away completely, he just ain't playing as much, right? Because Cliff Kingsbury's like, oh, no, that's not a thing. You know, Kyler doesn't play too much. Yes, he does. Okay? So Jonathan Gannon comes up, probably behind closed doors, and like, look, Kyler, bruh, put the sticks down and get into the playbook. Okay? This is the same Cliff Kingsbury who was the head coach of a Kyler Murray. And again, this is a very specific example, and it makes so much sense when you think about the fact that Cliff Kingsbury said that if he got hired as the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, he would draft, because he was a coach in college. He would draft number 1 overall, the Heisman winning quarterback out of Oklahoma. Does that ring a goddamn bell? A Heisman winning quarterback out of Oklahoma was already drafted number 1 this year. Now, he wasn't attending Oklahoma when he got drafted, right? He came from USC. But he started his career in Oklahoma after Kyler Murray. Okay? After Kyler Murray, because, you know, after Kyler Murray, it was what's his name? Spencer Rattler. And Spencer Rattler came in, and he was, I hated Spencer Rattler from the word go, because if you saw the quarterback show that he was on, I forget what it was called. It was a Netflix show that focused on like high school quarterbacks and everything. And he just thought he was everything. And I get it. In high school, especially, you're the number 1 quarterback in the country or what have you, and then you have Netflix following you around. I get it. I understand it. But, you know, somebody should have coached him up and said, hey, you need to be better on camera. You need to be not such a dick. But no one got to him, so I was rooting against him, as were many people, and then he got drafted in, the 5th round? Anyway, so, you know, he couldn't beat out Caleb Williams. Right? So Caleb Williams comes to Oklahoma and steals the spotlight from a Spencer Rattler, not Raxter. Okay, shout out Woodward Heavyweight. Shout out my guy, Spencer Raxter. Shout out my guy, Easy. I'm sure I'll have him on the show going forward now that I got the whole thing, understanding what was happening when I was going live. But again, Cliff Kingsbury drafted Kyler Murray. He was the number 1 overall pick. He was the Heisman winning quarterback coming out of Oklahoma. Now you got another number 1 overall pick, Heisman winner coming out of Oklahoma, and you want to hire Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, this is the most Bears move possible. Because there's a lot of people that don't believe that history repeats itself. And they say, what do they say about history? Those that don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. Please, Chicago Bears, hire Cliff Kingsbury. Because another thing that Caleb Williams has in common with Kyler Murray is that he doesn't get it. Okay? He doesn't get it up here. He thinks that the NFL is somehow college. He thinks that somehow he will come in, okay, and just be the guy. It's not the case, Caleb. And I said this, Caleb, and all you Bears fans out there, I hope you see it. Right? I might change one of my tags in the video to hashtag bear down or something, just so this can get into the nostrils of the Chicago Bears fans so they can smell a little bit. Because I told them, I said, Caleb Williams, he in love with hero ball. Because Caleb Williams, he played hero ball at USC. And guess what I did not do? I did not watch Caleb Williams at USC. But you know what I did watch? I watched all those plays. There was a compilation of all of his throws, okay? All of his throws and all of his runs for last season. So technically I did watch him. That was over an hour worth of gameplay, okay? And I did watch that. I watched every single throw from last season. I watched every single run from last season. I watched every single interception from last season. I watched every single fumble from last season. And I said, this dude don't get it. This dude he's got the main character syndrome. He thinks he's the main character. Right? So now, when I see him in the preseason and everybody's like, oh, he's got such great pocket presence and look how poised in the pocket he is. Jello pudding. When they did all of that, I said, look, imagine what that's going to look like when he's playing against people that are actually on the team. When he's playing against people who are actually making millions to sack him. Fast forward to last week, my man gave up 9 sacks. Now, obviously, he doesn't have a great offensive line, but some of them sacks were his fault. As an NFL quarterback, you can't hold the ball for 4 seconds running around in the backfield like a chicken with your head cut off. When you got a dump down wide open on 3rd and 2, you can't do that. You can't just take a sack on 3rd and 2 and push yourself out of field goal range. You can't do that, because especially when you lose the game 19-3, you can't do that. And then you get your offensive coordinator fired because, let's be honest, he sucked too. But the Chicago Bears have a Caleb Williams problem. Okay? That's right. Lone Spoon says the Bears are going to bear. Right? The Chicago Bears have a Caleb Williams problem. Now, so please, Bears, make sure you bear. Okay? Make sure you do the bear thing and you get your you get your Cliff Kingsbury back for Caleb Williams. All right, let's move back on to this list. So we had Cliff Kingsbury to the Bears, Bill Belichick to the Cowboys, Ben Johnson to the Jaguars. General Manager Mike Disner. You can't take Mike. Okay? Mike is our capologist. We already lost Brandon Sosner, right? He's just putting the sauce on it. We already lost him, I think, to the Commanders, right? He was working up underneath Disner. Now you want to take Mike? You can't take Mike. And then Mike goes to the Jaguars and then he takes Ben? You can't take Ben too. Listen, Ben Johnson told you he doesn't want to be in a situation where he's going to get fired in a couple years anyway. The Jacksonville Jaguars have Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is not the savior of football as everyone thought he was going to be. Trevor Lawrence is not the best prospect since Andrew Luck, like everyone thought he was going to be. Jaden Daniels is better than Trevor Lawrence. You understand what I'm saying? And Jaden Daniels, this is his first year. He's a rookie. Back to the Bears. Caleb Williams, really, if we want to be honest, looking like maybe the fourth best rookie quarterback in the class right now, with Jaden Daniels being better than him. Bo Nix looking better than him. Drake May just outdueled him face-to-face, head-to-head. So, I mean, what can we say? The only quarterback from this class that Caleb Williams looks better than, watch how I bring this all together. Watch how I bring it all back together. Is Spencer Rattler. Okay? Spencer Rattler couldn't beat him out in Oklahoma. And it don't look like he can beat him out in the pros, even though they play for different teams. So, back to Trevor Lawrence, back to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it's funny that we're talking about the Jags because that is going to be our opponent this coming Sunday. I don't like this for Ben Johnson. I don't think that this is a Ben Johnson move. I don't think he moves to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Why would you do that? Okay. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl in Philadelphia. He's expected to be fired after, what is it? This is his third year in Jacksonville? Second or third? Because obviously you brought in Urban Meyer, which was dumb. That wasn't a smart move, right? You brought him in. He was a disaster. He was a dumpster fire. Then you brought in Doug Peterson because Doug Peterson was the magic man, right? He worked magic with Nick Foles, and they won a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback because, you know, Doug Peterson's the quarterback whisperer. So you bring in the quarterback whisperer to whisper sweet nothings in the ear of fair Trevor Noah. Rapunzel, let down your hair, Trevor Noah. I call him Trevor Noah all the time. And his name is not Trevor Noah. He is not a South African comedian. His name is Trevor Lawrence. Okay? Anyway, that wasn't on purpose. It's a Freudian slip. But you brought him in to whisper sweet nothings into the ears of fair Rapunzel with all that hair, Trevor Lawrence. And you wanted him to let down his hair. Trevor Lawrence is playing like he's got his hair up in a bun. Now, I know that he's got receivers that drop passes and all these things. It's at some point, it's a Trevor Lawrence problem. Okay? At some point, it's a Trevor Lawrence problem. They've gotten him, weapons. They've gone out to try to help him. But it just ain't working. So Ben Johnson, I don't think he goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Why would you go? Especially, God forbid, the Detroit Lions don't win the Super Bowl this year. Obviously, we have them all in the Super Bowl, and we hope that they win the Super Bowl. A lot of us are predicting that they win the Super Bowl, but you got to play the games. You got to play the games. Okay? So, if you don't win the Super Bowl, and Ben Johnson just gets the itch to leave the Detroit Lions instead of staying like a man of his word and finishing the job, why the hell would he go to the Jacksonville Jaguars? Just because a job is open don't mean it's good. You understand what I'm saying? So you people that don't know anything about Ben Johnson, I'm going to give you a word of advice. Keep Ben Johnson's name out your mouth. Okay? And you, what's your name? Chad Forbes? Keep Mike Disner's name out your mouth. Matter of fact, just keep the Detroit Lions name out your mouth. Unless at some point in February, you are saying things like Super Bowl champion Detroit Lions. Other than that, let's move on. All right. What we got from Lone Spoon? So Lone Spoon says Ben Johnson isn't going to move unless the move makes sense. His kids and wife love Detroit. Thank you, Lone Spoon. That's what I've been saying. All right. Ben Johnson not just going to move just to move. Oh, is the Jacksonville Jaguars job is open? I'll take that. Why? Why would you take that? It's not something I would do. All right. We got something else here. We've got Lions emerging superstar named potential breakout player in the second half of the NFL season. Who are we talking about here? Let's see. Are we talking about Kirby Joseph? That doesn't make sense. It says, watch for Lions safety Kirby Joseph to continue his ball hawking ways. His ball production has been impressive since entering the league with 14 career interceptions midway through the third NFL season. Detroit's safety duo of Joseph and Brian Branch will have heavy influence on the NFC North. I don't agree with him being a breakout. Bro, my man's been breaking out all season. How's he a second half breakout candidate? He's got 6 picks already. The breakout has happened. Kirby Joseph is here. Kirby Joseph is an all-pro safety already, right now, today. If the season ended today, Kirby Joseph is an all-pro safety. What are we talking about? If the season ends today, Brian Branch is an all-pro safety. These two men are the best safeties in the NFL in tandem together. They are the best safeties in the NFL. So this is one of those national media things where they just talk just to talk. All right. Derek Barnes wants to cut block banned. Listen, it's a penalty already. However, they didn't call it when it ended his season. So it's already banned. Is it going to be now an ejectionable offense? Is ejectionable a word? Able to be ejected? I guess, right? If it's not, I just made it up. All right. And you heard it here first. Okay. You heard it here first. Lone Spoon. Shout out to Lone Spoon. He's the only one in the chat right now. And we expect that to change, obviously, because, it's a new channel. It's a new channel. So we're just going to keep plugging on. Thank you for joining the Motor City Cats, Lone Spoon. Liking, subscribing, sharing, and this is what helps the channel get out there, and this is what happens to make the channel grow. I had a video with about 800 views, and I had 4 subscribers at the time. So we doing that. We're going to the top. Okay, I have nothing but confidence that this will be a community which will be inclusive for all Lions fans, whether you are an SOL fan, whether you are a BNL fan, you know what I mean? Whatever the case may be. Even Broski Bear. If Broski Bear wants to come through and find me again, we welcome him. But, we're not going to see too much of Broski Bear around here because the Bears are trash. Anyway, so Derek Barnes, it's already banned. Now, I would say that it should become an ejectable offense. If you are guilty of a cut block, and it's an especially dirty one, okay, that has no bearing on the play. I think anything that you do from here on out, if we look at the Marcus Davenport injury, and we looked at, what was his name, Paris Johnson, that was a dirty play. Paris Johnson should have been ejected for that play. I forget the lineman who cut Derek Barnes and ended his season. I think it was away from the play. It was completely unnecessary. It did not need to happen. He did it anyway. He wasn't flagged for it. He should have been flagged, ejected, and fined. Okay? Because quiet as it's kept, I don't know if you know this, linemen are some of the dirtiest players in the NFL. I don't think I'm breaking news, but linemen are some of the dirtiest players in the NFL. If you are an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, you may be dirty. It's more likely for you to be dirty than other people. I'm going to tell you why. It's a very, very simple explanation as to why linemen are some of the dirtiest players in the NFL. Because you don't see everything that happens in there. Right? You don't see everything that happens in there. Because generally, if you're watching a play with an offensive lineman and it goes longer than 3 seconds, it's because he's giving up a sack. Right? So he's in a trail position. He's not in a position to be doing anything dirty. Right? If you're watching a play with a defensive lineman and the camera, this is what I mean by the camera, right? If the camera, we're talking about the TV broadcast. If the camera is on the line for more than 3 seconds, generally something is happening where the quarterback is giving up a sack. Or there's a screenplay where, you know, the line is a big part of the development of that play. These are where we see the line. Generally, right? Let's look at a running play. Let's look at Jahmyr Gibbs going up through the line, hitting the hole, boop, boop, and then the camera is following him through the secondary. We're not looking at the line that much. We looked at the line. Ooh, great hole. Boop, he hit the hole. Now he's into the secondary. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on the lines, in the trenches, that we don't see. There's spitting. There's grabbing, there's scratching, there's pinching, there's twisting, there's wrenching. There's all types of stuff that goes on. So linemen are some of the dirtiest players in the NFL. Now, if you are caught on camera, like Paris Johnson was, like the other guy was, again, can't remember his name, who cut blocked Derek Barnes, this is a situation in which you should be ejected. And you should be fined. And if you are a repeat offender, you should be suspended. So this is the only way where I can see that they would be banning the cut block, because it's already, it's a personal foul penalty, right? So the only way to take it out of the game is to kind of get the people who are now. Here's the other thing, right? If it's kind of an inadvertent one, again, you know, you go back to the Brian Branch situation. Was that hit that he put on Melton ejectable? No. Was it really forcible to the head? I mean, kinda. Was it egregious? No. The hit that put Chris Olave out was egregious, and that was flagged. Then you had Jackson Smith and Jigba, you know, get smacked coming across the middle in the same week, okay, in the Seattle Seahawks game. Forget who they were playing against. But that one, not only was the person not ejected, I think they picked up the flag, right? You had the Keon Coleman situation with Jordan Poyer, you know, they weren't former teammates because Keon Coleman is a rookie. Jordan Poyer used to be the safety for the Buffalo Bills, but you had him come over there and smack the mess out of Keon Coleman, and he was flagged 15 yards, and that helped the Bills win the game, right? However, he still was allowed to play in the game, right? He was not removed. So if you start ejecting people for cut blocks, it's going to be, again, one of those slippery slopes where the ones that they're supposed to be ejected, they're not going to be. And the ones that are not supposed to be ejected, they're going to be. And it's going to cause other problems. But I do believe that anything that you can bend to I don't know. So if you can try to make it look like you weren't trying to do anything or it wasn't intentional, but it's extremely dangerous, then it's something that probably you should be able to be ejected for. The Brian Branch thing, that was BS, but it is what it is. So what do we have? Can we talk about how I was right about Dan Skipper? That man was a turnstile. Okay, so Dan Skipper, let's address that. We'll address that, and we'll talk a little bit about Taylor Decker. Now, Taylor Decker, I'm sure you've heard the news already that Taylor Decker was kind of blaming himself for the loss. Well, it wasn't a loss. Sorry. He was blaming himself for all the pressures that were given up. And I was on Twitter because I was live tweeting because YouTube hit me with the okie doke and I couldn't stream for like 24 hours. Okay. Which was crazy because I had, enabled live streaming earlier in the day. And they still, when I tried to, schedule the stream, they said you can't do that for 24 hours. I was like, what? And they started the countdown from when the second that I tried to schedule the stream is like, oh, you got to wait for 24 hours. So I'm like, why would I have to wait 24 hours when hours ago I enabled the ability to live stream? So that's what that was. That's why I wasn't able to live stream the game Sunday night. But so I'm live tweeting the game and, sending out some videos, reactions, and things like this on Twitter. And Chris Collinsworth says something about Dan Skipper he wasn't doing too bad. And I was like, Dan Skipper not doing too bad is wild. So someone replied to this tweet on Twitter and was like, well, he's not the problem. My guy, I didn't say he was the problem, but he's definitely not the solution. When you give up 9 pressures to Danielle Hunter, now I don't say Danielle Hunter's name to diminish anyone, okay? Danielle Hunter is a freak of nature, and he is excellent, fantastic, all of those things, which is why we wanted him so bad in Detroit. So I don't want to say you gave up 9 pressures to Danielle Hunter as if I'm trying to put emphasis on Danielle Hunter's name. No. Okay, if you're going to give up 9 pressures to somebody, Danielle Hunter is right in the category of people that you do that for. So when you give up 9 pressures, you are bad. You are part of the problem. And I believe this is why Taylor Decker, whether he is completely healthy or not, I don't know. At this point in the season, nobody's really completely healthy. But whether he should rest against the Jacksonville Jaguars or not that's a topic of conversation. But when he blames himself personally for the performance of the offense, and it started up front, right? I said while watching the game, and again, you can go back and check my Twitter. I said at halftime, it was 23-7, and there needed to be a speech from Ben Johnson ripping the offensive line a new one. Okay. Now the offensive line did come out in the second half and they performed much better than they did in the first half. Obviously, there was still pressure and things like this, which again, Taylor Decker has been he's been getting beat this season. He hasn't been playing well, and there are numbers and stats. I think he gives up out of 32 left tackles, he's given up the 23rd most pressures or something. So he's like ranked number 23 in pass protection this season, which ain't great. But the game that Dan Skipper played, he would not be on the list. He would probably be number 40 of 32, which is not even possible. His pass protection was terrible. Okay, it was very bad that game. So Taylor Decker, back at practice today, trending towards playing. Obviously, he wants to go. And then we have to look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we'll talk about this more on Friday, okay, with more numbers and stats and all those things ready to go. But the Jacksonville Jaguars do have Josh Allen and they do have Trayvon Walker. Now, there was a glimpse as to why Trayvon Walker wouldn't have been the better pick than Hutch. And thank you, Jacksonville. See, this is another reason why I don't think Ben Johnson goes to Jacksonville. Ben Johnson is part of the organization that drafted Hutch. You think he's going to go to the organization that passed on Hutch? Like, where there, that's incompetence. Okay? Ben Johnson already can see from Detroit that there is incompetence in Jacksonville, Florida. Okay? Ben Johnson is like this. Yeah, nah. Nope. Nope. I can see what's going on. Okay? He's looking at, got the binoculars. Nah, that's not for me down there. Nope, thanks, but no thanks. Okay? That's what Ben Johnson is doing right now. Because he knows. He knows. But, those two, it's not to say that Trayvon's not good. But I would say that based off of his performance, he's getting a little bit better. But is he being properly developed? Maybe. But when your your number one overall pick is not averaging 10 sacks, right? He was like, you picked him number one overall. He should be averaging 10 sacks. There's no world in which a number one overall picked defensive end should not come in and be Aaron Donald. Okay? And we know Aaron Donald is generational, and I'm not saying, but I'm just saying he should have an impact immediately. Right? And this is his third season, just like Hutch was, Hutch was in the conversation, and not even the conversation. Hutch was the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. Okay? Let that sink in. Hutch was not in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. Hutch was the conversation. Hutch, it was about, will he break the sack record in his third season? Will he break Strahan's sack record? How close will he be? We know he's going to have 20 plus. You understand what I'm saying? So that's the number 2 overall pick at defensive end in his third year. Trayvon Walker is not anywhere near being mentioned in that stratosphere. So it may be a little bit on Trayvon, but I would think, because knowing and understanding Jacksonville and that organization being terrible and being inept, and coming from an organization in the Detroit Lions, which up until about 4 years ago was the same. Okay? Understanding these things, I don't think that Trayvon Walker is really being developed to the full potential of what he can be. Some of it is on him. I can't question his work ethic. I don't know what his work ethic is. I'm not in Jacksonville, but I think that it's some coaching and some culture. But he's still a person that has the ability to wreck a game. And if you put him on someone like a Dan Skipper, who's not great in pass protection, he can look better than he actually is. So what I would say is that don't sleep on Jacksonville. Remember, Jacksonville did hold that vaunted Sam Darnold-led Minnesota Vikings offense to 12 points on 0 touchdowns and 4 field goals. Remember that they did that. Now, I know that was in Jacksonville. Trayvon Walker was the GOAT of that game because they had gotten the crucial stop that they needed to get on that third down. And Minnesota was going to have to punt them the ball, and they were going to be able to try a game-winning touchdown drive. You know, hopefully for them, Mac Jones wasn't going to throw another interception. I think he had 3, just like Sam Darnold. But just having two guys that can wreck your game plan on offense as far as your pressures and what you're trying to do. Now, the Jags are not great against the run. And again, as I said, we'll talk about all of that stuff when we do the preview. But Taylor Decker, while we would like to see him rest up and come back 100%, struggling against the Jags because we're getting too much pressure on Jared Goff would be wild, and that's not anything that any of us want to see. All good, Lone Spoon, all good. All right, so let's get into the main event. Okay? This is a Mad Cats. This is a Motor City Cats production. This film is brought to you by Motor City Cats Productions. The Detroit Lions in Big Z Energy. Za'Darius Smith is Big Z. Za'Darius Smith came to Detroit and instantly brought the energy. He said it in his first media availability in the locker room. He said he was a big energy guy. And this energy that Big Z has is palpable. You can see it everywhere. You could see it in the locker room when he was talking to the reporters. You could see it after the game. Listen, after the game, if you did not see this, on Sunday Night Football, Tony Dungy, Rodney Harrison, and that other guy, forgive me, I don't know who that other guy is. He didn't play football. Okay? He didn't play football. He's a broadcaster. I don't know who he was. All right? I'm not even going to try to act like it. I'm not going to Google it. I didn't know who he was. They brought him up on the set. And he had, the iced out chain on, the Z, like the super. He got that in common with Kirby Joseph, Superman, right? He got that Superman with the Z on it and everything. And my man had on the buffs. Okay? My man had on the buffs. My man was at the Pistons game rocking the buffs and the Brian Branch t-shirt, flicking off the double birds to Lambeau Field. And we know Big Z. He said all the right things, man. I love, the organization. I love the fans in Green Bay, the cheeseheads, and going to Minnesota with the Skull chant and all that. That was all cool. He said all these things, but he already said before getting to Detroit, before a trade. Now, he knew trade was in the works. He knew they were talking, I'm pretty sure. Well, I can't say I'm pretty sure. He came from the Browns organization. and we're talking about organizational incompetence, when we talked about the Jacksonville Jaguars, we definitely have to talk about organizational incompetence when we're talking about the Cleveland Browns. So he comes from the Cleveland Browns, and we think, because what happened, we found out that as soon as Hutch went down, right? I'm thinking after the game, Brad Holmes got on the phone to Jimmy Haslam. I think Andrew Berry is the general manager in Cleveland. They got on the phone with whoever he got on the phone with and was like, "What, Big Z, how much gonna cost?" Ring, ring. Hello? Yeah, this Brad Holmes. How much I want for Big Z? Okay, that's what happened. All right. I'm guessing that they would have informed Za'Darius Smith that the trade talks had commenced. So then when he was asked by reporters about it, I don't know if it was whenever it was, a couple days after the game or whatever. He said, if I got traded to Detroit, I would like that because I'd be able to play the Packers and the Vikings twice a year. Okay, so we already know his true intentions. He can say all that he wants, and it's generally never the fans, right? The fans, unless you're James Houston, we can talk a little bit about him. The fans are generally good to the players that are good to them. Right? The fans are generally good to the players that are good to them. If you are a productive member of the team, even if you weren't productive, we got fan favorites. Okay? You remember, like, in Detroit, it used to be about where you were drafted or you were drafted and you just had like supreme athleticism and you could have been drafted in the 5th round and we wanted to see you play. Miles Killebrew. Okay, we wanted Miles Killebrew to be the starting safety so bad. We found a diamond in the rough. Oh, Miles Killebrew. All right, we had Miles Killebrew. Louis Delmas, yeah, he was productive for us for a bit, right? Had injury issues, but it's just players that they don't even have to be really productive. They could just represent potential. Now, if you're old enough to remember Andre Ware, okay, Andre Ware was one. He won the Heisman Trophy at Houston, and we wanted to see Andre Ware play. We wanted to see him. Now, unfortunately, once he got in there, it wasn't great. But you wanted to see him, just like Hendon Hooker. People wanted to see Hendon Hooker right before they started understanding who Jared Goff was and what he was doing. But you have this thing with the players. So now Big Z comes in, and obviously he says good things about the fans in Green Bay. He says good things about the fans in Minnesota, but we know what he wants to do. Now, there's been conversation about Big Z and his energy. Dan Campbell spoke to the media in his press conference, and he said, "Look, man, I'm not looking at the stats for Big Z. I just want to see that Big Z is doing his job. If you're pushing the pocket and a sack slides to Josh Pascal or a sack slides to Aleem McNeil because you've pushed the pocket, it doesn't matter if that shows up on the stat sheet. We know, understand you're doing your job. And that's what we want to see from Big Z." He said, "I've said all along that I was looking for a complementary piece." Okay? A complimentary piece. He didn't need a star, didn't need a big splash player, didn't bring anybody in to replace Aidan Hutchinson because you cannot. As I said earlier, remember, Aidan Hutchinson was the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. He wasn't in it. He was it. He was it. Okay? So now you've got Big Z coming in here, and that's what Dan Campbell expects from him. Right? Complementary football. Maybe Josh Pascal, pushes the pocket and a sack slides to Big Z. But we as fans want to know, how many sacks does Big Z get? Big Z already has 5 sacks on the season. He took his bye week last week, much to the chagrin of many of us, like myself, when I found out that he wasn't playing. Go look at the tweet. It was a goddamn it meme. Okay, I wanted him to play. I thought we needed him to play because I thought we needed him to get to CJ Stroud, and it turns out we didn't necessarily need him on the field. But again, part of that Big Z energy, he was needed off the field on the sideline. As you saw him coaching up the players, as you saw him, he said after the game, like I said, he got brought up to the post-game interview desk with Tony Dungy and Rodney Harrison and that other guy. And he said, they asked him, like, what were you saying? What kind of tips were you giving to the players over there on the bench? And he was like, one of the things he was telling them to do was listen to the protection. Listen to the protection, right? And this is something that's underrated because you would think automatically that defensive linemen are listening to the protection. I used to play running back, okay? On defense, I was a corner, so I was never up at the line, but I used to play running back. So when you have a check, anything with an L in it is left. Anything with an R in it is right. So if you want to say Ringo, rocket, roller coaster, radical, rabbit, radical, all of that stuff is to the right. It doesn't matter what words you use. Leopard, linchpin, Lego, Las Vegas, lecture, whatever, laser, anything you want to say with an L in it is going to the left. But apparently, not all the defensive linemen are listening to that. Okay? If you're sliding the protection to the left, you're going to say something with an L. It's not just for running plays, right? So this is something that he was telling them to look out for, right? And then they were able to kind of crush the can, as they say, and push the pocket and start getting more pressure on CJ Stroud, start making him more uncomfortable. We saw the big play with James Houston. Shout out James Houston. Shout out The Problem. If you know me, you know I've always been a fan of James Houston. I'm never gonna, poo-poo James Houston. Poo-poo James Houston might have been what happened. He says it was Gatorade. It looked a little bit yellow to me. I don't know that it was Gatorade, and I don't know that it wasn't poop. Okay, I'm taking him at his word because, like I said, it was a little yellow, and poop ain't ever yellow unless you have diarrhea. But that's neither here nor there. Okay, so James Houston dropped back in coverage and did his thing, and then came up. CJ Stroud was confused. I don't have anywhere to go. James Houston comes up and gets the sack, breaks down in front of him, make sure he doesn't juke him and get outside of him, a la Trevor Nowatzki with Mason Rudolph a couple weeks ago. I mean, that's neither here nor there. 52-14. I'm not gonna complain, but this is this came from coaching with Big Z. Now, that obviously dropping back in the coverage, that didn't come from Big Z. That came obviously from Aaron Glenn, because Aaron Glenn put him in the situation because he needed to be in that situation because we're missing so many guys. Now, Dan Campbell gave him a shout out. Everybody was wondering what is going on with James Houston. Why is he not playing? Is he in the doghouse? Dan Campbell is always going to tell it like it is. He said, look, man, that's what we expect from him every week. He's going to need to find a way to get to that point every week. But he was impressed. He was happy with his play, right? So when he talks about James Houston, he did great, and we need to see that from him. It's up to James Houston. James Houston now understands his path, and I'm pretty sure this has been told to him, throughout the season, throughout the offseason. He understands his path to playing time. It's not that Dan Campbell answered a question in the media and now it's an epiphany, it's a miraculous thing. Oh, I didn't know that was my path. No, it was his path. But here's the thing that I will say. The only thing that I don't agree with as far as how he's been handled. And again, it doesn't matter because I don't coach the team in all this. But the only thing I will disagree with was, yes, this is his path to playing more, but he also needed to do more in games in order to get to this point so that he could realize and recognize his path. You understand what I'm saying? So he had a game where he played 2 snaps. Yes, he had false starts on this, but okay, come on now. He's not getting any development. He's not getting any game reps. He's not getting any of that. Right? The Tennessee Titans game, okay, he should have had 50 snaps in that game. Because I'm pretty sure they had about 60 offensive, snaps, not, against the Tennessee Titans offense, because they just kept giving us, so many short fields. But this is the type of thing that you need. Like, he needs to be playing in games that are meaningless. I don't know the snap count in the Cowboys game. That was another blowout, right? And then Hutch went down, which, okay, I mean, if you're gonna get injured, you're gonna get injured. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. But that's the point. But back to Big Z and Big Z energy. How many sacks do you expect Big Z to have? I expect in these next, what are we? We're 8-1. Okay, that's 9 games. So we have 8 more games left. I expect him to get at least 6 sacks. Okay, now let me tell you why I expect him to get at least 6 sacks. We're going against the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is the team that is not much different and may actually be even worse on the offensive line. That James Houston got, what did he get? 3 sacks against them? Right? 3 of his 8 sacks came against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Jacksonville Jaguars traded their starting tackle, Cam Thomas, to the Minnesota Vikings. How crazy is that, right? You trade him to the Minnesota Vikings, and then a week or 2 later, you're playing the Minnesota Vikings, right? So obviously, you didn't think too much of him, and he was getting work and beaten like a rented mule when he played against Detroit Lions, so we don't think too much of him either. Okay? You traded him away. He's a starting caliber, apparently, left tackle. Okay? He was starting for the Jags, right? So now you got that game, and that's coming up. You're fresh. Okay? Mac Jones ain't moving nowhere. You crush the can on Mac Jones, you're getting the sack. Okay? He might get 2 versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. So now he's got 4 more. Who do we have next? We have the Indianapolis Colts. Joe Flacco's a statue. I think the Colts are worlds better than the Jacksonville Jaguars. 1 second. I think the Colts are worlds better than the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think the Colts are probably right behind the Texans. I mean, we did see the game, Colts and Texans, and you know what I'm saying, with Anthony Richardson, like, hey, I'm tired, boss. I'm tired, right? He tapped out. But I still think you'll be able to get to Joe Flacco, right? After that, guess who we have? We have Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams was sacked 9 times last week. He was sacked 9 times last week. Who did they play? They played the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots were one of the teams that had the fewest sacks on the season. They were struggling to get pressure on the quarterback. The New England Patriots were. They got 9 sacks versus Caleb Williams. 9. Why? Because the offensive line sucks and Caleb Williams sucks. Okay? Caleb Williams sucks. I said he would suck. I said he played too much hero ball to be good in the NFL. And I said he needed a coach that could coach that out of him. Here's the things that have happened since I said those things. He's played too much hero ball, and he doesn't have a coach that can coach it out of him. So this year, Caleb Williams sucks. Now, is it a rivalry game? Yes. Is it a game within the division? Yes. When those games happen, do you throw out the records? Yes. Can you be surprised about anything that happens? No. But the offensive line still sucks, and Caleb Williams still sucks. They may get a 1-game bump from firing their offensive coordinator, but the guy that's taking over from their offensive coordinator, remember this, was with their offensive coordinator for 4 years in Seattle, and he was the passing game coordinator. Same title he held in Chicago before getting promoted. So the system that he's going to be running in Chicago is the same system that he was running in Seattle, and is the same system that the architect of said system was just fired. How do we expect it to be any better? I don't know. Maybe some different play calls, maybe some different, you run in a certain situation, right, on 3rd and 2, even though your offensive line is banged up and sucking. Maybe you run it on 3rd and 2 instead of putting it in Caleb Williams' hands. Maybe you're trying to insulate is the word I'm looking for. Maybe you're trying to insulate Caleb Williams a little bit more instead of trying to force the ball into his hands. Maybe that is the difference that Thomas Brown? I think his name is Thomas Brown. You just deleted that comment I was going to read. Yes, it was confirmed poop on the St. Brown podcast. I gotta watch that podcast. Was that the Drake London episode? That's crazy. Confirmed poop. They were probably like, bruh, I smelt it. Nah, that was poop, bruh. So maybe that's what's going to happen. They're going to try to insulate Caleb Williams, and they're going to try to take the ball out of his hand a little bit more. But, I mean, the problem with Caleb Williams is, yes, the offensive coordinator was fired, and the change that he's going to have to deal with is having a new offensive coordinator. However, it's not going to be too new. The verbiage is not going to change. The system is not going to change. The passing game coordinator of the offensive coordinator is now your new offensive coordinator. So that's not going to change. The problem that you have with Caleb Williams, the voice that needs to change in the head of Caleb Williams is the quarterback coach. And that voice ain't changing. That's the same guy. Okay? The guy who he's not listening to when he says, hit your back foot and throw the ball. Right? If it's a 3-step drop, it needs to be a 3-step drop. If it's a 5-step, it needs to be a 5-step. If it's a 7-step, it needs to be a 7-step. It doesn't need to go from 3 to 6, from 5 to 10, and from 7 to 25. These are not the drops you need to be taking. And this is the guy that Caleb Williams is going to be listening to or not listening to, because Caleb Williams is a guy that needs someone who he respects, and I don't know who that will be. I don't know who that is. Okay? It's not Lincoln Riley, because Lincoln Riley was the guy that allowed him to be who he is, and that's fine in college. So now that he's in the NFL thinking he can do the same hero ball crap, that's why he sucks so bad. And that's why he gave up 9 sacks. And that's why I don't know that we give up they give up 9 sacks to the Detroit Lions, but I bet you Za'Darius Smith could get 2 of them things. So that's 2 sacks against Mac Jones. That's 1 sack against Joe Flacco. And that's at least 2 sacks against Caleb Williams. That's 5. Okay? That's 5. Then you got the rest of the games to get to Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, what's his name? Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, and Caleb Williams again. Right? You're playing Caleb Williams 2 more times, because we haven't played the Bears at all. So Za'Darius Smith might mess around and get 8 sacks. This is a game after watching that Patriots-Bears game. So mad Hutch ain't going to be able to play. Hutch might get 9 sacks himself. The 2 games against the Bears just might have been the games that allowed him to break Strahan's record, which is crazy. That sucks, because next year they're going to pour all types of money into the offensive line because they have to fix the offensive line. Caleb Williams is not going to survive in the NFL. Okay. The other guys, Jack Collinsworth, Chris Collinsworth's son. Okay, there we go. Jack Collinsworth was the guy with Rodney Harrison and Tony Dungy. But it's not crazy to believe this is Za'Darius Smith. Okay, now I'm going to say something crazy. It sounds crazy, but bear with me, right? It might sound crazy, but bear with me. It's not crazy to believe specifically because of the 2 games against the Bears. Caleb Williams has been sacked in the last 2 games 15 times. 15 in 2 games. It is not crazy to believe that because of the 2 games that we have against the Bears, that Za'Darius Smith could mess around and get 10 sacks in these next 8 games. Because for sure he can get 3 apiece versus Caleb Williams. It's not crazy. Is it crazy? Does that sound crazy? Do I sound a little bit crazy? I don't think I do. I think that's very doable. Now, if we're being realistic, my realistic take was 6 sacks for the rest of the season. All right? That's my realistic take. But I don't think it's crazy because of the Bears to say he gets 10. Okay? I really don't think that's crazy. I think that's manageable. Okay? I don't think we should expect it, but I would not be surprised if that were to be the case. All right? I wouldn't be surprised at all. Yeah, I think he gets 2 as well. I mean, it's Mac Jones. Mac Jones. Who is MacJones.com? If you know, you know, hashtag. But with Mac Jones, I mean, he might get 3 of them things. But I mean, he literally could get 3 against Mac Jones, 3 against Caleb Williams, and 3 more against Caleb Williams. I don't think it's crazy. I really don't. He may be 32. He may be, past his prime. But come on now. We're talking about bad offensive lines and bad quarterbacks. Okay? Mac Jones did not go to the right place. There were two times in his career where Mac Jones didn't go to the right place. And that's the 2 teams that he's been on in his career. Okay? He got drafted by the Patriots when Bill Belichick had the bright idea to install Fatty Matty Patty as the offensive coordinator, which was retarded. Okay, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that on YouTube. I don't know if I'm going to get stricken for it. But hell, that's what it was. Okay? And then there was a change. I think was it Bill O'Brien that he brought in? I think it was Bill O'Brien. But it wasn't great. And then he goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars, which, again, is also crazy, right? Mac Jones going to the Jacksonville Jaguars after being broken by the New England Patriots, it's crazy. It just wasn't a good situation for him to go to. So now he's a shell of himself. He's broken. He gets in against the Vikings. He starts. He throws 3 picks. Who's in his ear down there? I mean, I know Doug Peterson is supposed to be this great coach, but they seem to have tuned him out, whatever his message has been, to Trevor Noah, a.k.a. Trevor Lawrence. Okay? Whatever they have been doing down there, it just hasn't been working. So I don't know that it doesn't unravel. You're traveling to Detroit. You're the Jacksonville Jaguars. Remember, it's wars, not wires. Okay? If you're saying wires, stop it. Just spell the word out, and then you realize why you're incorrect. And I'm going to keep saying this every time I mention this team's name. So it's just not a great situation for Mac Jones to be in. I don't imagine that Mac Jones has a ton of confidence already, because when you get drafted, what was he drafted? And he was a top 10 pick, right? You're a top 10 pick, and then you're on your second team in your 3rd year. Like I said, I don't think he has a ton of confidence. So now you get in your first start, you throw 3 picks, you lose the game after being the only quarterback, to have your team score a touchdown in the game. I don't know. I just don't think it's great. I think Mac Jones could get flustered back there. Things could go terribly wrong, and he could go ahead and get sacked 2 times. That was the wind slamming my door. It is what it is. But anyway, appreciate you rocking with me. Lone Spoon. We had a couple other people come in. Make sure when you come in, you say hi. You smash that like button, you subscribe, you share, because the channel's new. I'm not new. And for those of you that know me, know that I'm not new. I am the artist formerly known as Chef. But, that's neither here nor there. But we are the Motor City Cats. We are back at it. We came to give you stats, not static. Whatever you do, keep your Lions news pragmatic. Again, smash like buttons, hit subscriptions, turn on notifications, make sure you share. Let all the Lions fans in your lives know that the Motor City Cats are back at it. And if you are the type of person that finds something fire and you just hoard it to yourself, you just keep it all to yourself, shame on you. Shame on you. We need to make sure that we get in front of as many Lions fans as possible. Need to get these subscriptions up so we can get in front of more Lions fans, and so on and so forth, and continue Continue. What is continue? That's not a name. That's not a word. Continue to bring this Fire Lions content, bringing the energy, all of that. Knocking things over on my desk, bringing you the victory buffs. Remember, Sunday's game live stream is here. Join me as I go through and we talk about the game. We chop it up. It's probably going to be a real casual, cool, calm, and collected conversation because it's the Jags. Okay? And the Jags game is probably going to go a lot like the Tennessee Titans game. And the only thing that we hope is that they don't actually give up 2 touchdowns. That's what we hope. We hope that the Jacksonville Jaguars do not get on the board. We want the score to be 60-0. Okay? 63-0. That's what we want the score to be. That's an acceptable score against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it'll just show that this team is going to continue to put foots on necks. Okay? You put foots on necks when you have the opportunity to put foots on necks. And you keep foots on necks. You understand what I'm saying? But anyway, that is going to be it for me today. People, make sure you keep it locked here. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share. Smash like buttons. And as I said, let the people know. Okay? Let the people know. You hear my lion in the background. It is time for me to be out. So, as always, peace.